One Charlie.
Mark, 1 Charlie.
Ladies and gentlemen,
I'm full of optimism.
Einstein's theory of relativity.
We're still seeing it quite well through that haze.
T-minus 37 seconds.
Fight with growing confidence.
E equals MC.
That all men are created equal.
About the future innovation.
And growing strength in the air.
Tear down this world.
Head on. Something's happening coming up on station.
This is Finding Your Frequency with your hosts, Jeff Spinard and Ryan Treasure. It's time to speak up, share your voice, and hear from the thought leaders.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another great episode of Finding Your Frequency. I'm your host, Ryan Treasure, and we have a great show for you guys today. I always love to talk about technology and marketing and, what other people are doing, what marketers are doing, what's kind of going on in the business space. And so we're gonna talk a little bit about that today. As you guys all know, a lot of these companies that are still actively, doing business in the background are unable to do, their live events or in-person networking type things. And so you get a lot of people who are, connecting with the customers digitally, whether it be a webinar or such. But then the other thing is, how do you get people to know about your webinar? I guess it's really similar to how do you get people to know about your networking event, right? There's Facebook ads and LinkedIn ads and, all kinds of different marketing techniques that are leveraging for that with search engine optimization, social media marketing, all of those kind of things. People are doing content-based marketing, writing blogs, making videos, giving stuff for free, all in an attempt to bring people into the fold so that way you can talk to them and they can hear your message face to face, or in this case, Zoom room to Zoom room, as my guest and I were chit-chatting about just before the beginning of the episode. Today, we're going to talk to a fantastic gentleman who is the founder of RMG, who helps brands make genuine connections with their customers with a background in technology and over 10 years experience in e-commerce strategy and management. And the list of companies he's worked with are endless. Charming Charlie, Sally Beauty, Verizon, and when not leading RMG, Ryan enjoys playing music, which I do as well. Love DJing, gaming, for me, not so much, and starting but not finishing construction projects at home. We can talk about that. Ryan Gellis, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks a lot for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, that's so funny at the end of your bio. Starting but not finishing construction projects at home. I have a stack of stuff in my garage that I'm like, I'm totally going to get to that. All right, let's get some speakers to put in the ceiling. Let's get some couple new shelves. My wife's like, yeah, let's do it. And now I have boxes of things I need to put together that are sitting in the garage. And for me, I'm like, it's 115 degrees outside. I'm not really trying to do this right now. And so I've been putting off all of my home projects until it's not so hot here in Phoenix, as we're starting to finally get a little bit of a cool down. But that's pretty funny. I think a lot of guys do that, right? They start a project and then just kind of it lingers.
Yeah, no kidding. My fiance absolutely loves it. We're finishing up a kitchen reno right now. We actually had some contractors come into the house to do a whole bunch of renovations, and we're down in Florida. We found out the hard way that in Florida, good contractors are really hard to come by, and so we had a contractor that did a lot of work and then just stopped in the middle of it. And I wasn't necessarily looking to become a general contractor in terms of construction. I already kind of do that in the digital space. But, I kind of picked up the construction through that experience. And now it's kind of a hobby of mine. But, I guess I am like a lot of other guys in that regard. I definitely do start stuff and then need to try to find the time to finish it. And it's either too hot or too cold, or, man, I got a lot of stuff to do, and I'll get to it eventually. So sometimes my fiance gets real happy with me when we're doing some of that reno.
Yeah, I literally have holes that I cut into the ceiling that are still sitting there because I refuse to go into the attic to finish wiring up our speakers, because my wife's name is Angie. I'm like, Angie, it's like it's 115 degrees outside. Do you know how hot it is in the attic? And I put my thermo temperature heat gun up there, and it's like 145 degrees. And I'm like, I'm not going to go up there. I'm not doing it, And she's like, but there's holes in there. And I said, honey, it's okay. The holes will be fine. We got a good, bug spray guy who comes out twice a month to spray. So I think we're good. They're not going to have any problems. But now that it's September, and today we got our first set of days that are underneath 100 degrees. So now I'm not going to have any excuse. I'm going to have to crawl up there this weekend probably and get that done.
Yeah, no kidding. Look, I'm down in Florida, and I think you said you're over in Phoenix, so we do the hot weather thing pretty much year-round here, too.
Yeah. I look forward to Christmas time. Everybody in the East Coast in the States are all shoveling snow and, worried about salt on their cars, and I'm just worried about salt on the rim of my margarita.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, Christmas time, we've become the holiday destination now. I don't know if it's the nice weather or the house down here, but we have to set up, like 12, 15 places to sleep when people are coming down for the holidays. So our house gets pretty busy. Yeah, no, that's how our place is too. I have a space in the garage where I keep air mattresses just for that reason. We got a huge family, and my mom lives here in Phoenix too, so it'll be funny. We'll be like, all right, there's like 11 people coming. We're gonna put 5 of them at your house and 4 of them at your house, or one family at your house and 1 family at mine, or whatever the case may be. And we always end up with a whole bunch of family coming in from, my family lives in Idaho. So they're like, it's like negative 10 degrees in Idaho in the wintertime. And they're like, oh, go to Phoenix for Christmas and it's 65 and sunny. Yes, that's a good idea. Yeah, it's funny. We set up air mattresses and stuff too. And I want to tell you, I don't know if it was last Christmas or the Christmas before, but my fiance's name is Kirsten, and her sister came, and the room, we do some video stuff for the agency, and so we had a camera in the same room that the mattress was set up, and it just so happened that the camera got knocked or something, was kind of pointing at the bed. She walked into set her stuff down. She's like, what the hell goes on in this room? Because we had all the stuff for the agency plus the mattresses. So yeah, we just try to pack it in wherever we can find the space, because
you're like, I'm a full service agency, didn't you know that?
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Whatever we need to do. Are you having trouble finding hand sanitizer? Well, Spa Treat has you covered. There's no need to go searching high and low. Just visit spatreatofficial.com and place your order on their easy-to-use website. On schedule delivery. One of the great things about this product, Spa Treat Fulfillment Team is working around the clock to provide people hand sanitizer during this time of need and get your order to you as quickly as possible, even faster than Amazon. Spa Treat also has the lowest price of any of its competitors. Spa Treat has 62% alcohol content, and the FDA recommends between 60 to 80 for maximum protection. This one has 62 because it doesn't dry your hands out. I use this stuff every single day. It is fantastic. It's got certified organic extracts with the ingredients in that hand sanitizer that are the highest quality, and they're designed to leave your hands smelling and feeling fresh while protecting you at the same time. The best part, there's no tricky residue left over. None of that sticky stuff. 4 scents available: unscented, tea tree, lavender, and lemon. And best of all, this product right here is made in the good old United States of America. A lot of companies are having trouble dealing with the current demands, so Spa Treat has dedicated themselves to providing a much needed product in the time of crisis. Spa Treat has better prices, faster shipping, and a larger supply than any of their competition. There isn't even a close second. Visit spatreatofficial.com and enter promo code SPA SPA at checkout to receive 5% off your entire order. That's right. Not only are they offering the lowest price available, but they're also offering our listeners a discount. This promo code is exclusive to Voice America, and only our listeners get this discount. Spa Treat and Voice America came together on this sponsorship in order to provide Americans something they could really need right now: peace of mind. Visit spatreatofficial.com and order yours today. That's spatreatofficial.com, and make sure you use the promo code SPA at checkout to receive 5% off your entire order. spatreatofficial.com. Get your awesome hand sanitizer. It is kind of funny to say this, but the adult industry drives a whole bunch of, new fads and new ways of marketing and technology across the internet. Like video streaming, and some of those things wouldn't be where they are if it wasn't for the adult industry. There's like a lot of stuff that they've brought to the table because they're this $1 billion organization or $1 billion industry, and a lot of cool stuff online for us that we use to market other products and services have came as a result of the adult industry. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's really interesting tech, and it's we don't really work with adult companies at the agency. We're a little bit more like traditional e-commerce and retail, but there's some crazy tech. The computer science behind the amount of traffic that's coming, and videos are one of the most data-rich things that you can push over the internet. The amount of traffic that comes to those sites, or sites like YouTube and stuff like that, being able to service that many people coming on those sites and having, a functional website. There's a lot of computer science that goes into that.
Yeah, in my brain too, I think about too, I'm like all the different users on YouTube and, the video sites and, live stream bought Vimeo. So, they're getting into being a player in the game as well, with their, live stream services and the Mevo camera and all that fun stuff. But I'm like, that is a ton of data, like to be able to manage in a CDN for delivery. You have a ton of stuff caching, at Voice America. I think about, for us, we have, something like 12 or 15 terabytes of data that we deliver on a monthly basis to our 4 to 5 million listeners, and I'm like, that's just a drop in the bucket. These video sites are dropping petabytes of content on a daily basis.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I mean, people don't realize, take a company like Netflix, for example. Netflix has agreements with local ISPs, so it's internet service provider. So you're working, you get internet. That internet comes from somewhere. There are buildings that basically service as like backbones for the internet infrastructure across the country, and there are data centers, right? There's computers, and routers,
the co-location.
All the data is going through. Yeah, right, co-located. Yep, and so those co-location centers, the ISPs are running. Netflix actually has an agreement, because you think Netflix, how many millions of people watch Netflix? That's video content over the internet. A lot of people leave it streaming and stuff like that, even if they're not watching. They actually have agreements with local ISPs to install hardware to cache even closer to people, so that they're able to push that much traffic, because it's a lot of data. The average video is probably something like 100 times bigger than the average web page that you would download. So, I mean, multiply that by the number of users that are watching video, and the longer the video, the more of that content streaming. You get into very big numbers, like you're saying, very quickly. Yeah, for sure. Speaking of marketing, which I think is kind of funny, and I think you'll jive with me on this one. You have this show that came out of the 1980s movie, The Karate Kid, and Karate Kid 2 and 3, and the next Karate Kid, and there's been a bunch of them. And then you have Cobra Kai that comes out on YouTube that's paid, and was like a little over a year ago that it came out. And some of my audio engineers that work here at the station are like, man, have you seen Cobra Kai? It's really good. And I'm like, I don't watch TV on YouTube, right? That just wasn't my thing. I had Netflix, I had Amazon Prime or whatever, and so I'm like, I'm not spending more money to go watch stuff on YouTube. And it was really funny to watch the success of Cobra Kai once it moved over to Netflix. And I think it was 3 or 4 days when it was released. It was the #1 television show in the United States, just by being released on Netflix versus it being released under the YouTube brand, which just goes to show you the power and the saturation that Netflix has in the streaming online world. It's crazy. Oh yeah, big time. It's about where your customers are, and there used to be this little old company called Blockbuster, and they had an opportunity to buy Netflix at some point, and Netflix was one of the first to the scene in this new space, and they capitalized on that, man. I mean, they knew what they were doing, and they moved from that rental business to the streaming, and basically invented a whole new category. So they've been building that business for a long time, and that's a big part of marketing, is knowing who your target audience is and what they're looking for.
Yeah, and that's a good point, and kind of to the press release that you had come out with about LinkedIn ads and some stuff that you guys had learned about that, and we'll get into a little bit more about that. But let's kind of let's start in the old finding your frequency fashion. And Ryan, tell us how you found your frequency in life and in business. I mean, why did you decide that you wanted to be a digital marketer? What drove you to found RMG, and what kind of problem were you solving? Because I know a lot of times entrepreneurs go off and start their own businesses because they may have been working at a place that wasn't solving a problem that they particularly found, or maybe weren't interested in onboarding that as a new solution. And so, boom, you have new industries and new businesses that are built because of, other companies not wanting to divert from their current status or whatever the case may be. So tell us a little bit about how you found your frequency in life and in business, and why you do what you do.
Sure. Yeah. So it's funny because I actually went to college for music technology to start. I thought I was getting like an advanced audio engineering degree. I wanted to work at Sony in New York, and I actually went to college right across in Hoboken, right across the Hudson River in Hoboken, called Stevens. And it turns out that the music program there wasn't as much an advanced audio engineering degree as it was a liberal arts degree, and Stevens is not a cheap school. And so I wasn't sure what industry I wanted to go into, but I knew that I wanted to get something a little bit easier to get a job with than a liberal arts degree. And so I switched into computer science because it gave me the ability to work in any field. I wasn't sure what industry, what did I want to go into, construction or engineering or what have you, medical. And, through computer science, it was always kind of a hobby of mine to, dabble with websites and play with new tech. And I taught myself how to code, and then met a lot of people in college that were way better than me that taught me more about it. One of those people that I know actually sold their company to Pinterest, and I think is like the head of product development now for Pinterest. It's coding and computer science has always kind of been a passion of mine. I think that's important, is understanding what you want to do. There are very few people I knew in college that went to get a certain degree and didn't switch majors after they kind of figured out, hey, I do like or don't like doing what I'm doing. And when I got out of college, I started working in the e-commerce space, and I really jived with these entrepreneurs that were trying to start businesses, or even larger businesses that had just this entrepreneurial spirit where they were trying to get something off the ground that they hadn't done before, or were trying to work in a fashion that was faster than the business was used to running, and changing their methodologies. And the time where I came into the industry was kind of this pivotal change from a software engineering process called waterfall methodology over to this new paradigm called agile methodology. People used to plan projects and do things step by step in kind of a waterfall fashion, and then they would iterate. It was a very slow process. At the time that I came into the industry, sorry.
No, I was saying very slow. I totally know what you mean. It's like, all right, in our waterfall, we're going to put together our sprint, okay, and we're going to go through these sprints, and we're going to hit these timelines. We're going to complete this project. And no, I love that you're bringing this up, because agile development has made a huge shift in the ability to deliver, websites and digital-based content in a much faster, more seamless manner, and also kind of being able to go with the flow with being agile development. Because what I start to plan today with a development completion date of 6 months from now, there could be a whole lot that changes in that 6 months.
There is, and that's the main reason that the paradigm shifted. Was there's a ton of stuff that changes. It's almost like I make this analogy all the time to people that are doing software projects. It's very similar to if you were going to do like a construction project in your house, right? I could say, hey, I think it's going to take 2 weeks to put new floor down, and then I have to plan out the steps to putting down new floor, right? I have to rip out the old material. I potentially have to level the floor. I need to put down some cork if I'm trying to soundproof it, and then I put the new floor down. And you can estimate how long that's going to take, but maybe you run into a road bump. Maybe your floor is so unlevel that it's going to take an extra week in the middle of that project just to get the floor leveled out. And you need to go get materials that you didn't expect, and you have new expenses and new time frames. And waterfall does not adapt well to that process, because there are a lot of unknowns in projects where you're not going to know until you run into the things that you do how to get around those roadblocks. And that's true of projects well outside of software development.
Any project.
Software development in particular. Yeah, any project. But software development in particular, you run into that stuff because technology changes super fast. It was, 25 years ago, barely anybody had a computer at home, personal computer. 15 years ago, everybody had a personal computer at home, but maybe not in their pocket. And today we're all walking around with the equivalent of what was like a supercomputer 15, 20 years ago in our pockets. It's just a super fast changing industry. And there's new players and technologies that come out all the time. So, software development in particular was not very, it wasn't a great, industry for waterfall to function well in. And so Agile replaced it, right? Agile is the idea that you're iterating quickly, usually in like 2 week sprints is what we call them. And you'll plan 2 weeks worth of work and see what you could commit to in 2 weeks and what your velocity was in 2 weeks, and whether or not you were able to, finish as much work as you thought you could finish in 2 weeks. And then at the end of the 2 weeks, you have a retrospective meeting where you look back and say, okay, how did we do? And what do we need to change for the next 2 weeks? And you constantly do this process every 1 week, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever the sprint cadence might be. And by doing that process, it's a lot easier to say, hey, I think the floor might take 2 weeks. And then, at the end of 2 weeks, I might run into leveling the floor issue. and I say, hey, you know what? It's actually going to probably take another 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and I need to factor that issue into my process. So Agile, fundamentally changed the way of development, kind of functioned at these agencies and at companies. And when I was coming into the software world, that process was taking over. The buzzword digital transformation was becoming a thing. Agile development processes were being implemented at large companies. New businesses were coming up and starting with Agile processes, which allowed them to go to market faster. And, I found my passion kind of working in this entrepreneurial environment where you have people starting businesses of all different sizes and, really taking something that didn't exist and, building this infrastructure online for people to shop and better their lives, right? Because that's what we do when we're shopping. We're looking for some way to either get enjoyment or buy products to help us do things easier or faster. And I really dug that whole scene. I started at a company that was like 8 people big. We were on the 4th and a half floor, almost like a Harry Potter thing, hidden in the cupboard. It was like an old server closet that was retrofitted to be an office. There were no windows. The ceilings were pretty low from what I remember. And, there were 8 of us, and it was like a full-on startup. And the guys that ran that company were actually, alumni from the school I went to. And then I left that company to go to a bigger company in New York that was about 50 or 60 people big. And that was where I kind of went from the development side of things to kind of straddling more of the sales and marketing side of things as well. I accidentally got pulled into a sales meeting where they asked me to come in and explain some technology to a prospective client that had come in to take a meeting in our office in New York. And I ended up closing the deal in the office because I just like connecting with people, and it excites me to see people starting businesses and really get into what's the plan to attack this market and how are we going to help grow. And we had a great conversation, and I kind of started getting pulled into more and more sales meetings to the point where I was on planes flying to London to close deals, and on phone calls or meetings across New York. And at some point at that agency, there was a massive amount of turnover there, and that's where I first started to run into the problem with the agency world on the inside, which is agencies burn resources fast. A lot of agencies talk about work hard, play hard, and I don't think that's a great mentality for staff, and I don't think it's a great mentality for organizations, because what it really means is you're burning the candle at both ends, and eventually you get turnover. And so I had been at that agency for probably about a year and a half, and when I started, I want to tell you the interactive department was maybe like 8 or 10 people big, and when I left, it was maybe like 25. We had grown a fair amount, but everybody except for me was new in that department from the technology side. And so, I had left. I had kind of an argument with the leadership there about, I remember this conversation. It was kind of a changing point in my career where, I had an argument with the CEO at the time about burning people using people like batteries. And once they're used up, you just replace them and get a new one. And I hated that mentality. And, I thought, how do you build a great agency and have consistent work and do great things if you have new people constantly coming in all the time and needing to learn processes, and you're not able to build your existing staff? I think that longevity in staff and training people up and building, better resources and helping people along their own career path is the way to run a successful business. And so I left that agency, and I helped a much bigger agency. The agency I moved to after that was about 300 or 400 people big. We worked with a lot of really big tech like Oracle technology, really big clients like Nintendo and stuff like that. And they had an R&D department that they were trying to start. And that R&D department, the purpose of it was to kind of work with more of the upper mid-market, low enterprise. They wanted to kind of move downstream a little bit from how enterprise they were working. The clients that they worked with were just very enterprise level clients. And they were trying to address this lower market. They were trying to set up an R&D office in New York. The company was based out of Texas at the time. And, at some point I found the other problem with agencies is that the sales processes and what the agency could actually do were completely disconnected. It's a common saying in the agency world. You'll hear people say, "Oh, I'm gun shy," or, "I was oversold and underdelivered." And the biggest reason that I saw for that happening in the agency world was you'd have people who were non-technical that were coming into these companies and trying to sell people on technical solutions to problems. Because at the end of the day, if you're going to endeavor on a software development project, the reason for that isn't to build technology, it's to build technology to solve a problem that the business is trying to solve online. And so, sales teams that were non-technical would come in and they would push solutions that they didn't quite understand on timeframes that really didn't make sense. And yes, there were kind of sales engineers involved in the process at some point, but not enough to actually make the sales process successful. And so a lot of clients at that company ended up being very, very angry when it came to the implementation times because, they would say something might take 6 months, and 18 months into a project, they had tripled the budget and they're obviously tripled the timeline. And, people get very upset when you estimate, it's one thing to estimate and be like a month off or, a couple weeks off. It's another thing to be, orders of magnitude off. And so that happened so consistently at that company that I started to get really frustrated. And I said, you know what, there's got to be a better way to do this. The agency world is already saturated, but I wanted to try a different process where we grew slow, we grew with purpose, we had longevity with our clients, we had longevity with our staff, and we had a process where the people who would be building the project were involved from the beginning through the sales process, through the implementation of the projects themselves. And that's one of the major differences of RMG versus other agencies is, when you're working with a team, that team is assigned to your account. It's a little bit of a double-edged sword because I know that you're going to be a happier client when you're working with the same team that comes to know you and your business processes and becomes an extension of your business. But I also need that person potentially, work on other stuff. And I have to hire slower because, people are assigned for longer amounts of time to less projects. So, it's better for the relationships we do have, but it means we grow slower as an agency because our people are more committed to what they're working on versus trying to just get the most bang for our buck and highest profit out of every individual resource. And then the other thing that we do a little different is when you're working on a project, a lot of times throughout the implementation process with software development agencies, you'll work with a project manager. Sometimes they're technical, most times they're not. And that project manager is pulling in resources as they kind of see fit. And the reason that becomes a problem is because a project manager can only understand a problem to a certain extent. And at some point you need the subject matter expert to come in and really start to manage a little bit. And so, when people work with us, rather than just have a project manager deciding what resources to pull in and when to pull them in, we commit senior technical leads is what we call them. They could be creative resources, they could be developers, they could be strategists or digital marketers. But there are senior level people managing the account at all times. And, we have weekly status updates even with clients where those senior level subject matter experts are on the calls with the project managers to walk through the infrastructure. You'd almost think about it like the foreman on a construction site. Imagine if you just had a bunch of workers trying to do a bunch of stuff and the person that's directing them is not somebody who's come from a construction background, right? It's kind of a recipe for disaster. And unfortunately in the agency world, there is no certification process. It's not like, hey, I want to become a doctor. I need to, go to medical school for 8 years and then do a residency for 4 years. And now I'm allowed to actually work with people. Anybody can start an agent. Anybody that's listening to this, to this audio could go start an agency right now. They could set up an LLC and be an agency tomorrow and nothing's stopping them from doing that. There's no certification process to weed out bad actors. And so agencies have a kind of stigma about them. And, that's one thing that we've learned the hard way in marketing is, when you're marketing like a product to consumers, it's a lot easier because you're starting neutral, right? People don't know who your brand is. They see your marketing. Maybe they're interested in whatever your product is or service and, they engage with you. Whereas from an agency perspective, when we're marketing ourselves to people in the space, most people have a stigma with agencies. Agencies are kind of starting from behind, and you need to start building trust from a place where people might view you negatively. It's a much harder sales aspect, especially because we're also selling to marketers, and marketers typically feel like they know the best way to do things. And unless you've worked in an agency environment where you've seen lots of different projects and the same problems at lots of different companies, it's hard to convince somebody who might not have seen that before to have an open mind that there might be better ways to do stuff. So yeah, that was where I found my frequency, I guess, is I have a hobby that I have a passion for that turned into the ability to, kind of bring that to the work world. And, I saw some opportunities at agencies that I had been with where I disagreed with business processes and how we went to market and how we actually implemented what we were doing, and, started an agency to try and solve those problems.
Oh, that's awesome. What a great story of, identifying and picking up some of the shortcomings of other places and saying, hey, I can build something better. I can build something that has more longevity with less turnover. And you guys have to check out this new service that I'm playing around with called Issue. It is totally amazing. You live to create, but you don't live to worry over the last nitpicky details involved in putting final touches on contact. You got to do what you do best and let Issue handle the rest. If you're a creative, you know the drill. You're finally done editing. It's perfect. Now you just need format and reformat for every single platform. With Issue, make it once, and it's ready to post everywhere. Seriously, Issue is the all-in-one platform to create and distribute beautiful digital publications, from brochures to magazines and sales collateral. It's perfect for creators, marketers, designers, educators, publishers, salespeople, or just anyone that wants to make eye-catching content that can be distributed on multiple platforms. Issue makes it really simple. Just upload the PDFs and files, and Issue transforms them using your vision and customizable templates to create the content you want. With Issue, you just create it one time and distribute it everywhere. Everything is optimized to post on your website, social platforms like Instagram and Facebook. They can even help you make animated Instagram stories. And the best part about it, it is free. FREE free. That's right, it's free to get started with Issue. So go to issue.info/frequency to sign up for your free account. That's ISSUU.info/frequency to sign up and let them know that you heard about it from this show, Finding Your Frequency. Remember, that's .info, not .com, .info. So go to ISSUU.info/frequency and get your free account today. I think that's an appropriate way to build a business. I mean, those relationships that you have with your clients are extremely important, because it's a lot easier to keep a client than it is to find a new one. You know what I mean?
That's very true.
So keeping those clients happy with the dedicated team and that, and even though you're not growing as fast, your foundation is more stable, right? It's kind of like an old Japanese or karate kind of saying, as they talk about trees, that if you bury a tree deep and you allow its roots to grow, then it'll have a great foundation for growth. But if you lay that seed too shallow, then you don't give the tree a good understanding, a good root structure to be able to go and grow. And yes, that tree that's at the top of the soil will grow faster, but it won't be as robust as the one that was planted deepest.
Yeah, that's very true. And it's about balance too, because at some point businesses are running on budgets and have time frames they need to do things in. So it's about understanding that foundation, not just for the relationship between, the partners that are working together, but also for what you're trying to achieve. And then understanding where you can try to alleviate budget or alleviate time frames, and being smart about making those decisions rather than just trying to rush to the end.
Yeah, no, that's extremely important. I mean, and looking at analytics and data and making decisions, based on some of that stuff is important too. I talk to so many people a lot of times when they're, marketing a product or a service or whatever, and they have their brand, and they just, they're like, oh, this looks really cool. I love it. Let's put it out there. And it's like, well, wait a minute, just because you like it doesn't mean everybody else is going to like it. There's this thing called A/B testing, right? That you do in R&D. Like let's A, B, C, D, E, and F test something, with a small budget, and then let's see which one of those performs better, and then turn around. Right, if you're doing agile, even in marketing, right, you can deploy agile in the marketing space as well. And you're like, okay, hey, these ads did this in this amount of time. Here's our 2 week. We're going to meet and figure out which ones did the best, and then take the budget away from the ones that didn't do so well and plug that into the one that did. And that's what I see so many times. People fall in love with something that they've created from a creative perspective, that they're not really they're too emotionally attached or physically attached to something that they've created to be open-minded about doing some A/B testing on certain items.
Yeah, that's true, and that's it's kind of the one of the tough parts of agencies is not only do you come from behind, but once you start to build that trust, building the relationship to a point where people become open-minded about, call it like a challenger incumbent model, right? Can we challenge what's running right now to do even better than it's performing? Can we try different things and see what works? And we do that all the time, especially when we're marketing for ourselves. And, which types of images work better for different campaigns depends on who you're trying to reach out to and what you're trying to convey in the messaging.
Well, kind of back to like my earlier statement about the difference between Cobra Kai being released on YouTube versus it being released on Netflix, right? You have the same content. It's just a different mechanism for where it resides. So you could have, a video that does terrible on YouTube as a pre-roll or whatever, but blows up on Facebook ads. You know what I mean? Just because of the way that it is or the audience that segments that's watching those particular pieces. And you're not really necessarily changing the content as much as you're changing the mechanism or where it's being housed.
That's right. And there's no one best strategy. A lot of times we run into companies that think, hey, what's the silver bullet to solve this problem? And the answer to that is always test, right? There's no one way to know anything. I don't care how experienced you are in the space. You'll know certain things work over other things and, generally where to do your testing. But then once you get into those platforms, like let's say, hey, let's test on YouTube versus Netflix, for example, there's no solid answer. There's a hypothesis that you make like, hey, let's see if YouTube works. It's probably not going to work as well as Netflix, but let's try it. And then you test and you see, okay, did Cobra Kai do as well as it did on Netflix? No. So the next time you're going to release something, hey, let's not push YouTube as much as we're going to try and push Netflix. And it all depends on the deals too, right? Like, did Google create, some kind of distribution deal with the people that created Cobra Kai where, they wanted it exclusively and it actually was profitable for them to do that, even though they might not have gotten the audience that they intended to. Because they knew that after that exclusivity period ended, they could just go to Netflix anyway. So it all ends up being this bad. And that's what I mean by balance. There's this game where you need to kind of understand, okay, what are the foundational components, which in that case might be great content, because if Cobra Kai is not a good show, nobody's going to want to watch it anyway. But then once you have that good content, how do you push it to market and what's the best strategy to be the most profitable so that you can potentially get like a season 2 and a season 3 and now a bunch of actors and producers and makeup artists and all these people that work in that industry are getting paid and the consumer is getting great content that they get to enjoy when they're trying to relax at home. So it's important to do testing and understand how these things work. But sometimes people make decisions just because, it's even regardless of the test, that something might be profitable for the business and help it in the long run.
Yeah, I think so many times too, people are like, I just need brand awareness. And so they're, oversaturating with marketing just for brand awareness, just so people know who you are versus, looking at really targeting or marketing to your target audience. It's like, I try to look at like 10 years of data for here at Voice America. I'm like, how old, what do they do for a living? What is our buyer persona for the last 10 years? And we've been in business since 1999. So we have quite a bit of data on, who are the people that purchase our product. And, if I was doing an ad campaign, that would literally be the demo I would be going after first, right? Because I know these are folks over the last 10 years that have purchased our product. So let's start there, right?
That's absolutely right. And the idea, the technique is called layering. You would start with the base layer, the fundamental primary market that you're targeting. And then you'd move into secondary and tertiary markets and try and expand out. You could even, once you figure out who your base market is or know who that is in your market and you saturate that, that's where you start to expand on top of your campaigns and really drive at some of the tangential stuff. Maybe one statistic for people who, listen to you is that they also happen to like Cobra Kai. And so you can start to do some marketing to people who have shown interest in Cobra Kai because you know that your market does that. But that wouldn't be the first thing you do. The first thing you would do would be based on like demographic, firmographic, psychographic data. And then you move into some of that, the more robust tangential marketing after you have like a firm foundation that you're working from.
Hey everybody, I wanted to tell you about this great shaving product that I've been using lately. Not only is it awesome, it will save you money. Enough to buy 26 cups of coffee in New York City or 3 deep dish pizza dinners in Chicago. Harry's is an awesome product. It delivers high quality razor blades as low as $2 each, a fraction of the price of leading brands, and saving you hundreds of dollars at the same time. I really like the way that Harry's works. It has a very close shave. It's got a great design for the handle, and also the scent of the shave gel is fantastic, and it leaves your skin nice and smooth. You can get a trial set delivered to your doorstep by going to harrys.com/frequency. Quality, durable blades at a fair price, just $2 a blade. They've cut out middlemen manufacturing blades in their German blade factory that's been honing precision blades for a century. I'm telling you, I use this product and it is absolutely amazing. Harry's has all your grooming needs covered in just one stop. You can get blades, hair care, shower products, all on harrys.com. And just like their blades, Harry is committed to providing premium products without breaking the bank. Again, visit harrys.com/frequency. I want to make sure that everybody gets the chance to go check it out. You can feel better too about the purchase because 1% of their proceeds are set aside for nonprofit organizations developed to helping provide access to better mental health care for men and veterans. How could you not get behind the veterans? So important nowadays. Listeners of the show can redeem their Harry's trial set at harrys.com/frequency. You'll get a weighted ergonomic handle for a firm grip, 5-blade razor with a lubricating strip and a trimmer blade. I use it every day. Rich lathering shave gel with aloe to keep your skin hydrated. And I'm telling you, when you get done shaving, your face will feel so smooth, it's amazing. You even get a travel blade cover to keep your razors dry and easy to grab on the go. So make sure you go to harrys.com/frequency to start shaving and saving today. So as a professional marketer, when you look at all the different ways of marketing, and I know that you guys did some testing on LinkedIn and how their advertising platform works, with, finding that, some of the impressions were possibly bot based and, some of those things weren't as robust as you think they might be for a social space like LinkedIn. But where do you start as a marketer? Like, how do you know, okay, I'm going to do ads on LinkedIn versus Facebook, or I'm going to do Instagram or Snapchat or whatever the case may be? Obviously, the couple of things being super obvious. If you're going for a younger demographic, obviously you're probably going to start looking at the Instagrams and the Snapchats and the TikToks and those types of things. But as a professional organization who's looking for, that buyer who's, not 25 years old, somebody who's a little bit more robust, where do you start? How do you know? Do you start running mini campaigns on each one of those to see how they perform and then kind of make pivots every week or two? Or how do you, with so many different ways to market products, goods, and services online, like, where do you start?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, like I said, it's saturated. The space is saturated with service providers, technologies, new stuff's coming out every day. 2-3 years ago, TikTok wasn't something you necessarily market on top of. 2-3 months ago, you didn't have the ability to market directly through Hulu. They just introduced some new OTT streaming technology to purchase ads directly through them, right? There's new stuff coming out every day. So like I said, test. You want to have a strong, solid foundation. You want to start with your primary audience and where they are. So, for us, we know that our primary demographic is like a 35 to 55-year-old professional. They're typically in like the top 20% income bracket. 70% of them have a house, 70% of them have kids, 70% of them are married. There's about a 70 to 30 split, men to women, in the, marketing and technology services industries. So we know that the ads that we're going to create are going to be a little less feminine, because that's going to ring truer with a larger portion of the people that we're reaching out to. So that's that like demographic data that we're really looking at to understand, okay, how do these people, who are these people, right? And then you want to get a little bit of understanding of like, how do they function? Like, do they read books? Do they order magazines? Are they into cars? Are they into sports? Just to understand, like, who am I marketing to? Because the best marketing is speaking to a customer. We have like brand awareness studies, right, where you'll have marketing running. Like, if I were to show you a picture of the Geico gecko character, and I didn't have Geico's logo on that picture, and I said, can you name this brand, right? That's one type of study that's done to see whether or not you can attribute the marketing with the brand to what they are. And then the next part of the study might be, okay, what's the sales pitch that comes from these types of advertisements, right? And Geico does a really good job of the whole 15%. That's using numbers in marketing is actually a really great way to it's an attention grabber, and it's something that's easy for people to remember. Specific to the agency, we know that our demographic is what I said. And so we know for sure we're not going to start on YouTube. We're not going to start on TikTok. We're not going to start on Instagram, because they have younger audiences, right? We were looking at Google paid channels. We were looking at both paid search terms as well as display. We were looking at LinkedIn because it's a professional network. And we were looking at Facebook a little bit. The problem with Facebook is that most people don't come to Facebook expecting to have business marketed to them. And I mean that from like a B2B perspective, right? Like we're a business that sells services to other businesses. When you're on Facebook, it's a very personal setting. You're interacting with other people you individually communicate with. You might expect to see consumer products on Facebook, but business marketing tends to not work as well because most businesses that even have Facebook pages or whatnot that operate on there are there to connect with their consumers. There's a whole interesting reason why businesses start to do that we could get into if you wanted to. But, our primary demographic was really focused on LinkedIn because we know how Google is going to work. And you have to have a campaign that makes sense, right? Brand awareness campaigns are actually, in my opinion, a very bad idea just to do awareness for the sake of doing awareness. Because if you're going to do an awareness campaign, you need to be tracking things like brand lift. And unless you're a much bigger agency like Deloitte, it probably really doesn't matter what people think about us. I'm sure most people that are listening to this probably haven't heard of RMG unless they've specifically looked at agencies to implement like full service commerce implementations for businesses. So it's a very kind of niche type of thing. And, when we're marketing to people on LinkedIn, we know that those people are in they're in a mental state where they are open to potentially being marketed to from a business perspective, because if they're on LinkedIn, they're thinking about work. And the people that fit in our demographic fit on that. And we need to know what we're marketing to them, right? You can't just do awareness because awareness, it's like shooting 1,000 arrows in the fog hoping to hit something versus like, shooting an arrow directly at a target. You get much better success trying to, shoot at a specific target than just shooting a bunch of arrows in the fog because you don't know where anything is, and chances are you're going to miss everything that might be there anyway. And so for smaller companies that don't have a ton of budget to burn, if you're McDonald's, sure, you do brand awareness. If you're Pepsi or Coca-Cola, you do brand awareness. If you're a business like us, where you're not spending, $1 million, $5 million, $10 million a month on a marketing budget, brand awareness really isn't a super effective strategy because most of your marketing dollars are being burnt. And so the wisdom was, the conventional marketing wisdom was, let's go to where our customers are and try and push a campaign specific to those specific people. And so, LinkedIn in particular, we had it was right when coronavirus happened. We have a business intelligence tool that we leverage with commerce companies to help them triangulate data from all different sources. So it pulls in marketing data, it pulls in email data, it pulls in analytics data, it pulls in your commerce data, and it helps you answer questions like, what's the best time of day to push messages to my customers on Facebook? That'll result in the most profit. What are the best ad channels? What are the most profitable ad channels that I'm running in, and what does their growth look like over the past, 10 to 12 months and things like that. So we have this tool that we were pushing to people. This was back in like March, that coronavirus hit, and we said, you know what, we're going to give this tool away for free, help businesses through Q2. We made the tool free for 3 months. And we wanted businesses to just be able to track their data because at the time there was a massive dip in March and then everybody started to kind of beeline back up to profitability. And we ended up being in a state where most commerce industries were up 30% year over year in Q2. And so, this commerce tool was our way of trying and help the community, get our name out there, potentially work with new companies that were able to get their feet under them through the pandemic and help people grow. So we ran a campaign. It was, I think we did like a $3,000 spend for a 30-day period. That $3,000 spend almost saturated the budget that LinkedIn said we would be able to spend. So, there might be people that say, hey, why didn't you spend $15,000 or $30,000? We couldn't because the budget, we weren't able to burn that much budget on the audience that we were marketing to. We had run this specific campaign. We did exactly the A/B testing that you're talking about. We had 3 different types of ads. One of them was a more abstract image. One of them had people, and one of them had, a hand on a tablet pointing to some marketing data. The ad that ended up working the best, I think, was that one. And, when we did our initial testing over the first week or so. And so we made sure that we only ran that ad for the remainder of the campaign. And when I say that it ran the best, I mean the most people clicked on that ad.
Right.
Because as you know, we ran that campaign for 30 days. We had, I think, like 250 clicks on that particular campaign on LinkedIn. And the advertisement was specifically like, try RMG's analytics tool for free because of coronavirus. We want to help your business grow. And then there was a button to, request a demo. And so, the argument for marketing would be, okay, somebody sees this ad on LinkedIn. They're in a mental state where coronavirus has hit. They're thinking about work. They're, networking with people on a business social network. They should be primed to, respond to this ad. The people that click, we would expect to be real people interested in whatever this solution is that we're pushing to them. And so I think we had about 250 something clicks on the ad over a 30-day period. And out of those 250 clicks, we had exactly 0 people sign up for the tool on the landing page. And we did all kinds of testing to see, was there something wrong with the landing page? Did the website not work? Was there something wrong with LinkedIn? And we tested all types of ads too. A lot of people might say, hey, well, you can do like website conversions or website visits or engagement or, brand awareness. Because you can choose on LinkedIn, like what the types of algorithms you want to run are to try and tell, LinkedIn, hey, I want more website visits. I want more people converting, et cetera, et cetera. LinkedIn even has a marketing option where you can choose to run lead gen forms directly on LinkedIn. So people, one thing we tested was, hey, you know what, let's pretend there's a bug on our website that we can't see and all our testing isn't showing. Let's run a lead gen form on LinkedIn. They never leave the LinkedIn website. They click on the ad. It opens a form on LinkedIn that's pre-filled with their data, and all they have to do is click submit, and now they've got a free demo of the product. I want to tell you we had about 80 or 90 clicks on that lead gen form, and again, 0 submissions, right? And so then we started to become a little suspect. And I guess to give a little bit more detail about the campaign was, specific to people in the United States because there's a massive fraud problem on all of the advertising networks outside of the United States. Places like you've probably heard of like the Nigerian prince scams and stuff like that. So we didn't want to be marketing to locations like those. We set the audience to be specific job titles, which is about as specific as you can be in a LinkedIn campaign. We know from the people who do use our marketing analytics tool that primarily they're CMOs, business strategists, or leadership like CEOs or CIOs that are looking at the data from these tools. So we knew that those were like the 4 tracks that we really wanted to be pushing, these advertisements to. So we narrowed down to a subset of probably like 50 job titles. And the way that LinkedIn works is, you might say market to chief marketing officer, but it actually rolls up multiple titles underneath of that. So even though you say chief marketing officer, we'll also advertise for like CMO, maybe like, marketing leader. Like, I don't know what the specifics are that roll up into it.
Yeah, director of marketing and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So we targeted that specific audience. We set our filters for location. We set our budgets and everything that we were going to do. Like the ad campaign, we actually put a video up on YouTube kind of demonstrating what we did to get feedback to see what people said about the campaign. And so far, most of the feedback has been, yeah, we've seen this too. We stopped running on LinkedIn because we had this issue. But yeah, we had like 250 clicks on the campaign, 0 submissions out of 250 clicks on a $3,000 spent. And typically in marketing, like if I can spend $3,000 on a tactic and it's not going to work with that number of clicks, it's statistically relevant enough that even if I spend $30,000, I'm unlikely to get any kind of real return on running that marketing campaign. Especially, that campaign was more of a loss leader for us. It was something where we were marketing to help businesses because it's part of, our belief system as a company. And, the end result would hopefully turn into working with new partners that we help to stabilize throughout the pandemic. But the main goal of the campaign was to get people hooked up and looking at their data in ways that we knew most companies don't. And then not only that, but on the website, so you click on the ad, and most of the time we were doing our testing, we had people coming to our website because we can track that more deeply. we use user session recording tools to see what actions people take on the website once they get there. And that was where we kind of dropped our jaws and said, oh man, this network's actually either full of fraudulent accounts or it's full of people accidentally clicking on the link and immediately backing out, because the bounce rate, which is the time where somebody browses to your site and leaves within a second or 2 seconds, depending on what ad platform you're on, the bounce rate was 98% on that campaign. And with how specific the advertisements were and how specific the audience was that we were targeting for that advertisement, a 98% bounce rate didn't make any sense whatsoever. And we were following some basic marketing principles, like make sure the images match, make sure the copy matches between the advertisement and the landing page, and some other best practices for direct response pages like we were doing. And when we saw the user session recordings, and just there were recordings where there were no activity and people bounced. There were recordings where people bounced before the page had even had a chance to load. And this page was running on one of the most advanced technologies, same technology that Facebook actually created, called React. It's a progressive web application. Our average page load speed was like a second and a half. And so people were coming to this website that's extremely fast and leaving before, it could even load. We were seeing clicks that just looked inhuman, like people that were clicking, 100 times a second in all different areas of the screen. It was just, the behavior was so, it was just so volatile, just where, it didn't make any sense when we looked at the behavior. And that's where we said, we have a problem with our campaign. So we grabbed all the log data of people who had come from LinkedIn to our website. We grabbed all of the user session recordings. We got in touch with LinkedIn. We actually talked to like their head of product development or something. And the end result of that conversation was, look, you make a really good argument, but as far as we can see as LinkedIn, all the data that we're looking at looks like it's legitimate users. And we said, okay, is there any way that we can see, statistics on some of that data without compromising personal information? For example, on the LinkedIn app, one theory we had was, let's say it's not bot traffic. Let's say that it's just users accidentally clicking on an ad. Well, most ad networks try to attribute that misclicks and actually credit you back for people who accidentally clicked on an ad because it wasn't targeted traffic. And we had asked them on the app, most of the traffic from LinkedIn when you mark it comes from their mobile app. And so on the app, in the bottom right-hand corner is a notifications button. And sometimes when you load the LinkedIn app, there will be an advertisement that sticks up like halfway from the bottom of your screen behind the navigation bar on the bottom. And so when you have a notification, sometimes you might try to hit a notification and accidentally click on the ad behind that bar, because the bar where you click the notification is just smaller than most people's hands when they're pressing the button. And so when that happens, when you click on an ad in the LinkedIn app, it doesn't actually redirect you to a website directly. It slides open a screen from within the LinkedIn app and actually browses the website from within LinkedIn. And so, our thought process, our theory was, hey, if it's not bots, which some of the traffic clearly was just fraudulent bot traffic, humans would never behave that way. But some of the traffic, let's assume it was just regular people bouncing. They click on this button that says request demo on an advertisement that's targeted for like an analytics platform. When they get to the site and they accidentally, click that thing and close the site, that would be a very high indicator that it was a misclick. So we said to LinkedIn, hey, what was the percentage of those 250 something clicks? What percent of them came from your app, clicked in the bottom right-hand corner of the app when they clicked the ad? And was the ad displaying 100%, or was it, only 50% available in the viewport that they were looking at? And LinkedIn said, oh, we can't tell you that. That's a privacy policy problem. We would give up users' data to give you that information. So we called BS and said, you know what, whatever. It was a $3,000 ad spend, and, we're just not going to use LinkedIn as a channel, but that to advertise in. And then other channels were potentially generating stuff like Google paid keywords, for example. I want to tell you, 15 out of 16 clicks we saw on the first day were legitimate traffic that were browsing the site and leveraging the form. And it was very a night and day difference between the traffic coming from LinkedIn versus the traffic that was running from Google. And by the way, we were running these campaigns in parallel because we wanted to test to see which advertising medium would be the best to generate leads on that form. And so we kind of tabled LinkedIn as an advertising strategy for a little bit, but then I started talking to people in the market, and I had heard constantly, and even if you look it up for people that post publicly, that LinkedIn is very expensive to run on, and that campaigns generally don't work as well as when you're running on other paid, advertisement networks like Google.
Right.
And so I started thinking, how many people are running into this problem? I'm curious how many people actually
Right.
try to use LinkedIn and run into the same problem we do. We've got B2B companies we work with that we have talked about trying to run campaigns on LinkedIn and stuff with, that I'm potentially going to eat my shirt on, because I think LinkedIn is a totally different ad platform than it actually is when you use it in reality. And so, I made a post on LinkedIn, and I said, I think LinkedIn has a fraud problem. I think it has a misclick problem where they're not attributing misclicks properly. Who else is running into this? And, I want to tell you, in a week, that post had like 2,000 views and 20 comments, and lots of people saying they were interested in I think the professional, polite way to say I've seen this, but I don't want to kind of, talk negatively on LinkedIn, is to say, I'm really curious about what you find from the study, right? But then there are people who blatantly said, yeah, I've run into this and I don't run on LinkedIn anymore. There's comments like that are coming in on YouTube. I'm getting private messages from people saying, thank you so much for posting this, because I was running into this and I thought I was crazy, and I know I'm not the only one now.
Right.
And it's the question, and we have not seen a massive influx of people saying, no, you're totally wrong, you're doing this all, I was curious to see if any marketers would come in and say, have you tried X? Have you tried Y? Have you tried Z?
Yeah,
and that just didn't happen.
That's awesome. That's awesome that you put yourself out there and did that study, which is very helpful. And Ryan, I want to thank you for joining us on Finding a Frequency today. We're running out of time here, but let people know where they can find you, your website, and we'll wrap up this episode. We'll have you back on another time, I think.
Sure, great. I appreciate it. Yeah. We're a full-service digital agency. You can find us on rmgmedia.com. So if you're looking to do any kind of development, creative, strategy, digital marketing, we are definitely a company you should at least consider and A/B test against the other people that you're talking to, right?
Yep, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Ryan. We appreciate you joining us. My name's Ryan Treasure, host of Finding Your Frequency today. Make sure you guys check us out on all the different podcast destinations. Rate us 5 stars instead of 4, because we definitely deserve it. Love your comments. Keep sending feedback to info@voiceamerica.com. Stay tuned for another episode next week right here on Finding Your Frequency Talk Radio on the Voice America Talk Radio Network.